Commander Irix Tal's four eyes blinked in rapid succession as the emergency alert flashed across her neural interface. All cubs missing from nursery wing. The words burned crimson against the sterile white walls of Station Kepler 9's security office. In her 20 cycles of service, she had never seen such a breach. The cubs, offspring of 7 different species currently aboard the station, represented the future of the Galactic Coalition. Their safety was paramount, their disappearance unthinkable. She bolted from her station, her chitinous legs clicking against the metal floor with increasing urgency. Behind her, 3 junior officers scrambled to keep pace. The nursery wing was in chaos when they arrived. Caretakers from a dozen worlds shrieked, chittered, and bellowed in their native tongues, each frantically searching their assigned quarters. "Silence," Irix commanded, her translator amplifying the word across all frequencies. The cacophony died to nervous whispers. A Quellan attendant, its tentacles writhing with anxiety, approached. "Commander, we conducted the routine evening check. Every single cub gone. 17 in total. No signs of forced entry, no environmental breaches, no—" "Security footage," Irix interrupted. "Already reviewed. The cubs simply walked out. All of them. At different times over the past hour. As if summoned." Irix's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. Mind control? A pheromone attack? She accessed the station's bioscanner network, tracking the unique signatures of each missing cub. The results made her secondary hearts skip a beat. They were all in the human quarters, specifically in the residence of Eli Grant, the station's human maintenance technician. Alone. "Tactical team, with me. Non-lethal protocols only," she ordered, though her weapon remained holstered. Humans were unpredictable. Their planet was classified as a death world, yet they insisted on being diplomatic. They were simultaneously the Coalition's greatest warriors and most enthusiastic pacifists. This contradiction never ceased to unsettle her. The corridor to the human quarters seemed longer than usual. With each step, Irix calculated scenarios. Hostage situation? Unlikely. Humans bonded easily but rarely used young as leverage. Illegal trafficking? Possible, though Grant's record was spotless. Some bizarre human ritual? She couldn't rule it out. She pressed the door chime. Once. Twice. No response. "Override authorization Tal 7 Crimson," she stated. The door hissed open. The sight that greeted them defied every tactical scenario she had prepared. Eli Grant sat in the center of his living space, cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by a mountain of pillows, blankets, and cushions. And nestled within this fabric fortress were all 17 missing cubs, each one sleeping peacefully. A Vrelian cub covered in fine crystalline fur was draped across Grant's lap. 2 Quellan offspring had wrapped their tiny tentacles around his arms. A Thaxian kit, barely larger than his hand, was tucked into the crook of his neck. The others were piled around him in various states of comfortable repose. Grant himself appeared to be dozing, his head tilted back against the couch, breathing slowly and deeply. Soft sounds emanated from a device nearby, what the humans called white noise, mimicking the sound of rain and distant thunder. Irix stood frozen. Her weapon hand fell slack. One of her officers began to speak, but she raised a talon for silence. Something unprecedented was happening here, and disturbing it seemed. Wrong. A small chirp drew her attention. The Vrelian cub had awakened, its large opalescent eyes blinking at the intruders. Instead of crying out or showing fear, it simply yawned, stretched, and burrowed deeper into Grant's leg before falling asleep again. Grant stirred, his eyes opening slowly. When he saw the armed security team in his doorway, he didn't start or shout. He simply raised one finger to his lips in the universal gesture for quiet, then carefully began to extract himself from the pile of sleeping cubs. It took him several minutes, moving with a glacial patience that Irix found remarkable. Each cub was gently repositioned, supported by pillows, kept warm by blankets. Not one awakened fully during the transfer. Finally, Grant stood and tiptoed to the doorway, gesturing for them to step into the corridor. The door whispered shut behind him. "Commander Tal," he said simply, running a hand through his disheveled hair. "I'm guessing you got an alert?" "Explain, now." Her translator likely didn't capture the full bewilderment in her voice, but Grant seemed to understand anyway. He sighed. "Look, I know how this appears, but I didn't kidnap anyone. They came to me. Started about 2 hours ago. First the Quellen twins, then the others. They just showed up at my door one after another looking exhausted and fussy. Fussy, Irix repeated, unable to sleep, agitated, crying. Well, whatever the equivalent is for each species. Grant leaned against the wall, his own exhaustion evident. The nursery wing is too sterile, too bright, too quiet. It's designed for safety, not comfort. These kids, cubs, whatever, they needed something the automated systems couldn't provide. And what is that, human? Grant met her gaze steadily. They needed someone who wasn't doing it because it was their job. Someone who would just be there, hold them, make them feel safe. On Earth, we call it holding space. Sometimes kids just need to know someone's watching over them while they sleep. Irix processed this. Her species laid eggs and left them in carefully monitored chambers. The concept of prolonged physical contact during rest periods was foreign, inefficient, and another memory surfaced. A human phrase she'd heard, "It takes a village to raise a child." Humans, despite being apex predators on a world that tried to kill them daily, were intensely social creatures. Their young required constant care, physical touch, emotional bonding. This wasn't a weakness. It was how they'd survived. "You spent 2 hours holding 17 cubs from 7 different species," she said slowly, "for no payment, no recognition, simply because they needed comfort." Grant shrugged. "They're kids, Commander. Scared kids far from home, even if they don't remember it yet. What else was I supposed to do?" In that moment, Irix understood why the Coalition had recruited humans. Not for their death-world strength or their tactical brilliance, but for this, their inexplicable, inefficient, absolutely vital capacity to care. "I should file a report," she said finally. "This was a serious security breach. I know. I'm sorry. I should have called someone, but they kept coming and I didn't want to wake them once they finally settled in." "Your quarters will be upgraded," Irix interrupted. "Larger space. Additional environmental controls. Official designation as auxiliary nursery facility for special circumstances." She paused. "Someone should staff it during night cycles. Volunteer basis. Would you be available, Specialist Grant?" Grant blinked. "Specialist? You are clearly specialized. The Coalition recognizes merit where it is demonstrated." She turned to leave, then looked back. "And Grant? Thank you for finding our cubs. All of them." As she walked away, Irix heard soft sounds from behind the door, a tiny chirp, a small trill, and Grant's low, rumbling voice singing something about stars and dreams in the human tongue. 17 different species, sleeping soundly because one human decided that was more important than protocol. Perhaps, Irix thought, humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their capacity for violence. It was their refusal to let the vulnerable suffer alone. Even in the cold vacuum of space, humans brought warmth.